What's up, everybody? I am super excited that you have joined us for this episode of Real Raw Conversations. I know it looks a little different today because we've got more than two people. What we're doing today is we've got a panel of people that are super close to me, that I love and respect very much. And we're going to be talking about addiction. We're going to be talking about recovery and everything in between. So if you or someone you have ever met or loved has dealt with addiction, you need to watch this today. And if this message blesses you and you really enjoy it, we would be so thankful that if you're watching this on Facebook, that you like and share. And if you're watching it on YouTube, that you subscribe to our channel and share this on one of your social media outlets. All right, well, let me introduce you to my guests on this panel today. My first guest name is Laura Thompson. Hey, Laura. So glad to have you here today, friend. Laura actually leads worship for us on Monday nights. She's got an amazing voice, an amazing talent, and we're super excited to have her to be a part of this ministry and also a fellow friend in recovery. My next friend's name is Christina. Christina, hey.
Hi.
Christina's got an amazing story. She came to the ministry a little over a year ago, broken and hopeless, and decided to choose to get her life recovered. We were able to get her into a detox facility. And then when she got out, we surrounded her with love and accountability. And today she's celebrating over a year of continuous sobriety from alcohol. So we're super excited to have Christina here today because she is a success story of the work that God is doing through the Hope Project. And the last person on our panel's name is Brandon. He is a longtime friend of mine. In fact, I've known him for over 33 years. Yes, that's a long time. And you can figure out that I am old now. But Brandon, I'm so glad to have you here, man. Super thankful for you and for your story. And so we're just going to jump right into the questions. So my first question is, when it comes to addiction, how did you know you were addicted? And I'm going to start with Laura.
Yeah, so I think you can recognize when a substance has control over you when you can't really make plans outside of it. In my case, I really couldn't think about traveling, staying with other people, adjusting my plans in any way whatsoever, because I was filled with a crippling fear of not being able to have my next drink. And so it made me go a bit more inward in my day-to-day life and isolate. And so I basically spent my 20s either hungover or drunk when I wasn't pregnant with my kids. And so, I wish that I had identified the problem sooner. I think I spent a lot of my 20s in denial that I had a problem, or I know I have some work to do, but I can kick that can down the road and I'll deal with it eventually. And then I'll come out on the other end and be fine, and I'll be able to drink again responsibly.
Yeah.
But just getting to that point where I knew it was a problem and I knew that it had to stop.
Yeah. And I think I can definitely identify with you. For me, with the isolation, it was like when I first started drinking and even using drugs, I love to be around people. I love to be social, but the farther and farther I got into my addiction, the more and more isolated I got. To the very end of my addiction, I was, completely alone. I was sleeping on my dad's couch, and isolation was definitely all around me. And I know too, for me, I definitely couldn't plan anything around getting high. Like you said, no matter what plans I made, first of all, I had to figure out if my drink or drug was going to be able to fit in those plans. And if it wasn't, I wasn't going to make it happen. So when it comes to addiction, how did you know you were addicted, Christina?
I will also just I got accustomed to going to the bar every day after work. So, but I also, like Laura said, went to work every day and feeling like I was going to die from a hangover. But and I would start the argument early in the morning, like, you feel really bad, don't go to the bar, don't do this. So the argument went throughout my day, and at the end of the day, I still went to the bar regardless of what I had argued through or whatever, and ended up grumpy near the end of the day and decided I deserved it. So I always talked myself right into the bar, instead of out of the bar like I was trying to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And well, it's not great, but I can relate. I can definitely relate with what you're saying there. So Brandon, tell me. Yeah, every day.
That mind battle of, you don't need to, I'm going,
all day, every day.
Every day.
So Brandon, tell me how you knew you were addicted.
I didn't. I wasn't. Never happened. Wasn't the case.
Yep.
I learned after Johnny Law got a hold of me, and during a program I had, that I was a part of through the court system, thank God, really took me some time to accept, when I was going to AA programs and things like that, to really grasp, that what I considered a norm was not the norm. It may be a norm amongst many people, but most of those people were in the same shoes I was in.
Yeah.
So it took quite a while for me to actually accept it, because when I was in my 20s, I lived in Vegas. I could work whenever, and after work you could go to the bar. And then I was in the military, so that's just what you do when you're not doing anything, when you're out with your friends celebrating or whatever the case may be. But it definitely seemed that my norm had to change, and it did. But I was thankful for it, and I didn't. Nothing clicked for me until somebody told me, "Hey, man, enough's enough." So.
Yeah. That reminds me of that old saying that, sometimes God does for you what you can't do for yourself. And, I think that is just a pure example of God's grace and mercy on your life, because, oftentimes that's the wake up call you need. And, that can be your rock bottom, and that can get you, back on your feet and get you productive and successful again. And that's what it takes sometimes. And so, man, I know that those things can be a blessing sometimes. So that's awesome. So how bad did your life have to get before you decided to quit using your alcohol or your drugs? I'm going to start with you, Christina.
When the withdrawals started, I think that was the moment I knew I had to change, but also that it was affecting my work at that point. I had been partying more and all that, and it was just I was too worn out, and the withdrawals were bad, and I was having the shakes a lot, and my boss had made the comment that I smelled like alcohol, and I had a DUI and accident and all that, so I had a lot that kind of woke me up all together. Yeah. But the line was realizing I had withdrawals and that I was a shaky mess without alcohol and did not feel good without it. Yeah.
How bad did it have to get?
I couldn't get through without it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember what that was like for me, and I remember what that was like for you. That wasn't that long. I mean, that was over a year ago, but it feels like just yesterday we met, and walking really through that with you. I know. Oh, I know it was hard.
It was so hard.
How bad did
y'all helped and pushed?
Hey, we gonna continue to push and help and love.
Definitely.
Till Jesus takes us home. So Laura, tell me, how bad did it have to get for you to finally say, hey, I'm going to quit drinking?
I think for me, it was an accumulation of over 10 years of really heavy drinking.
Yeah.
And I reached a point where the physical pain that I was living in was too much. And the last year of my drinking, I was drinking like, a lot, and it brought me to a point where I was always in so much physical pain that I just reached a breaking point, and said, I don't want to live like this anymore. So for me, it was just really driven by the physical symptoms of where drinking was leading me. It wasn't so much from external forces in my case. It was just, I didn't want to feel like that anymore.
Yeah. So Brandon, tell me, what did it take to get you to quit drinking?
Like I said, the law really pushed my hand. I'd gotten a second DUI in 5 years. And I realized, my family told me that, a lot of my friends that I drank with always said that I was a super fun guy to drink with and hang out with. But for some reason, the people that I loved, like my parents, my brother, my girlfriends at the time, for some reason, I was always less than kind to them, or I had harsh words. And I didn't really realize that till later on. But that second DUI, and I was facing a felony for DUIs, and I couldn't stomach the fact of being labeled a felon, veteran that's a felon. That bothered me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I survived 2 wars and come back to be a felon because I can't control my drinking. And I figured that out when I was in that veterans treatment program they had in my state that I went through. And so when it came to that and all the challenges that program required for you to partake in and everything like that, and it was very hard at the beginning, and it became easier. But during that time that I got the DUI, that second one, there was a lot that was going on in my life, that definitely think that God had his little puzzle pieces or his little chess things going on. And I didn't see it at the time, but as I was sober and looking to understand things, I was like, oh, well, there was a million signs. Yeah. So, basically, for the most part, again, it wasn't me just being like, hey, I got a problem, this and that. I just got caught drinking and driving again, going at 0.22, going 15 in a 55. Yeah.
15 in a
go me. What a rebel. So
yeah,
that was very humbling. And, that was my thing. So,
yeah.
I wish I had the story where I just noticed it and was like, hey man, I really got a problem, and listened to my friends and family, but found out quick.
Well, the great thing about us all having, different stories is that all of our stories can help someone. And who knows, there could be someone watching today that might be in your same shoes, and, now it's all for a reason. So I know we all have our stories for a reason, and that your story can help somebody, man. So what was it that helped you most in your journey to find freedom from drugs and alcohol? I'm going to start with Laura.
So for me, with my sobriety journey, I spent the first 2 years of my sobriety without a 12-step program. But the only way that I was able to achieve that was by doing the first 3 steps without knowing I was actually doing them.
Wow.
And so what allowed me to get through the first 2 years was handing it over to God and giving the burden to him, and letting him take the control of the situation. I prayed with 2 sweet women in my church, and I just asked them if they could pray for God to help me put off the old and put on the new.
Yeah.
And that's what made the difference.
That's awesome. Christina, what about you? What was it that helped you most in your journey to find freedom from addiction?
Well, I had like three factors, I'd say, but it was definitely the Hope Project first, because after detox, I kind of went back a little, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had Hannah Winkler support me at the Hope Project, and
Yeah.
she kind of, challenged me to start, to like have that first sober day and then celebrate it later after a few days. So
Yeah.
we kind of planned it together to where we were going to celebrate 1 week sober. Anyway, we did that, and I'd say the challenge of a friend doing it with me was very helpful. And then also the Hope Project continually supporting me and praying for me, especially the different volunteers that pray over you there. I needed a lot of that, and so getting closer to God was definitely needed and important there. And
Yeah.
also, I really wanted a husband, so I was dating my husband now, then, and right early in our relationship, and he saw me drunk, and that was something I didn't like, and I wanted to
Yeah.
change because I didn't want another good man to leave because of
Mm.
how sloppy I was at the time.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Brandon, what was it that helped you most in your journey to find freedom from alcohol?
The the first, when I was in AA, I was traveling for work during that program I was in, and I was required to go. I had to get anyway. I had to find them, and I traveled all over the country for work still. So I was in Northeast Pennsylvania, and I had a guy that offered to be my sponsor, and I was reluctant because I didn't know how anything worked, and I always assumed that everybody that was an alcoholic or that needed help or whatever was an absolute, delinquent, and it's not true. And,
Yeah.
Meeting people that actually went to the meetings and actually really, truly contributed and listened and weren't playing on their phone and weren't, twiddling their thumbs or crocheting or whatever. They were actually listening and partaking in everything. And, that meant a lot to me. And then my first sponsor, he took a lot of time and challenged me and laid down the law on some things, and it was really, really nice. And then when I got my second sponsor, he helped me through a lot of hard times, and unfortunately he relapsed during my 12-step program, during my 12 steps. So that was an eye-opener. So, and then realizing that, veterans that I was with in the program, and then, Joe Schmo, men and women of all different ages were in the rooms, and that were actually truly there for a reason. Because I was court appointed, but eventually I started going to way more than I needed to, that I was required to, because I enjoyed it. I related more to more people there. I related more to the people in the 12 in AA rooms than I did with half my veteran buddies, and we've been to war together. So it's like when you have it was just odd. It wasn't maybe one individual person, but it was the collective group of everybody, like, and their personalities and how they find, everybody finds different ways to enjoy, football games or baseball games, or going to the beach or whatever, and not being the norm of having a drink with you.
Right.
And you can be around others that do or whatever, but you doing it is okay. That's all right. You're not a weirdo because you're not doing it. So
Right.
that comfortability was super, and relatability was super helpful for me.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to ask you guys, what do you do on a daily basis to remain free from drugs and alcohol? I'm going to start with you, Christina.
Well, now I don't have it strike me as tempting as it used to be, but it's still the argument, the head battle, but now I'm winning that argument instead of losing that argument. So now I'm able to know that if I go back to alcohol or end up at the bar, I'll have let down so many people and it could possibly harm me or cause my death. So now I'm able to combat those thoughts and temptations of the bar and what it would bring if I did give into that. So I'm strong enough now to conquer that head battle that I have from here or there. Not every day, but it does pop up still, even after a year, for sure.
Laura, what do you do on a daily basis to remain free from that next drink?
I have to focus each day on only that day. And you hear it a lot in different recovery programs, but the one day at a time, that acronym, it's what I have to do. If I look at the rest of my life and think of it in terms of not just abstinence from alcohol, but also what it means to be sober, and realizing that being sober is a lot more than just not having your substance, because I can be a dry drunk. I think just remembering that, taking each day one at a time. And I really do have to do the third step on a regular basis. And remember that, God will remove the obsession, and God will remove the character defects that are there. And that gives me comfort to know that it's not all in my hands. It doesn't have to be.
Tell our viewers, what do you mean by doing a third step?
So you're handing over to your higher power the obsession to drink, basically. And I see Brandon grabbing a book. I don't have the words memorized exactly, but there you go. But yeah, that's what it means. Is you're handing over. You know that your life is unmanageable, has become unmanageable. You don't have power over alcohol, and then you become willing and ready to change, basically, and then you decide to hand it over to God.
So, what are some daily things you do to remain free from drugs and alcohol, Brandon?
I look at the people I work with, and they do the same thing they've done for the last 8 years that I've been doing my job, and they literally do the same thing and drink every night out in the parking lot till they're probably still out there now. And that's just the norm. That's what they do. That's what I did. I look at it and realize, even though as much fun as that would be, it's extremely tempting. Although most of the time they're very understanding and respectful and aren't like, oh, come out and have one or whatever. But it's more of a general invite. But no, just realizing all the time that people put into my recovery. Not just some people say like that my legal thing. By doing that program, I got my DUI dropped and dismissed, and I, thank God, didn't become a felon. And it's not that. It's the time and effort and true passion and enjoyment from the people and through the court system, through the veterans court that they had, through everybody else that I worked with. Like, looking back at those, how much my relationships with my friends and family have been, since I've been sober. So like that's a big one for me. And Laura, I couldn't say it better. The one day at a time. And if I remember when I first started saying that to myself. I was like, man, one day at a time. I was like, well, what about 2 days? Like, man, I sure can't wait till I can not worry about one day at a time. It just comes like 1 week at a time. And I was frustrated. Like, I wanted it to just be like, okay, well, yeah, one day. Okay, I got today. I got tomorrow. Okay, I got it. Like, can it just be normal now? Can I just not struggle with it anymore? Like, that would be really cool if we could just speed this whole sobering process up. I just don't need it anymore. I'm good. But yeah, that's definitely a wake up call that, you know, even after a hard day at work and everything like that, and a nice cold drink sounds delightful and everything, but man, I sweat this stuff out like crazy.
Yeah.
Water's my best friend now, so it's great.
Wow.
So
That's awesome, man. Christina, what do you do on a daily basis to remain free from drugs and alcohol?
I drink a lot of Starbucks.
Yeah, you do.
I do. Caffeine has kind of been my strongest support too. Not drinking. I do delight in my coffee. I won't lie. It's probably an addiction that I'll need to tackle eventually.
So you drink a lot of coffee.
The support of friends and all, and being able to reach out to our supporters and all that is just so valuable. And I get to those moments when I can't handle it anymore and need to call somebody to lean on. That it's really important to do. Otherwise, if I was left to just by myself and my thoughts, I would definitely be at the bar. But I know that I can call them and get a little love when needed instead of going and making that other choice. So
Yeah. It's good to have people you can call that listen and can walk with you through the hard days, and, you know, kind of find out who your friends are when the fit starts hitting the shan, you know?
Oh, and when you can relate, like when you can remember things that you did, Chad, remember I called you one day when I was drunk, and I blamed you for not calling me or answering my phone calls and this and that. It was late, and it was, man, I felt so embarrassed, so like crap, man. Why would I put that on you, and it wasn't even your place, especially, and I was so embarrassed, and I felt so bad, and it's like, man, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I don't have to worry about that
Right.
that slap in the face to the people who love me.
Yep.
I
And
guess,
really, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I guess to be a little more serious with it, whenever it got too bad with my anger, I had a lot of anger or emotions, I would take walks, because the walks would help me get out the anger. And then kind of by the end of the walk, you forget why you were so worked up in the first place.
It's good.
It helps you calm down. I relied on walks quite a bit and was proud in the end, because it was a walk instead of going to the bar. And I literally could have walked to the bar. But that and also there were times when I was so sad and emotionally broken that I had to cry out for Jesus, and that was the really deep, dark times of it. But
yeah. Mm. So my next question is, what are some triggers that used to drive you to drink or drug? I'm excited to hear from Laura first.
In my case, it could be really just about anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like asking, what makes you breathe? If something that would warrant celebration happened, if something bad happened, if I was bored, essentially, I would drink every day. And I'm really grateful that, in my case, I didn't really find like the first of the morning drink, but I did, essentially start like midday. And, on the weekends, if it was 10:30 or 11, we're having a brunch drink, or whatever. I'd find a way to justify it. And of course, during the work week, I wouldn't drink during those work hours. But I would start the day feeling physically horrible. I would work, I would get all my work done. And then as soon as I got off work, I would drink until I wasn't awake anymore.
Mm.
And so really anything and everything. It wasn't so much trigger to drink. It was, this is my daily routine.
Yeah. So I guess my next question kind of goes with my previous question. How do you deal with those triggers now?
Yeah. So now I call my sponsor a lot.
That's
And, you know, she's a tremendous help. I've learned so much from her. And it's really, that's the benefit of being a part of a 12-step program. Is you can lean on someone like your sponsor who has an open door policy in my case, and I can call her whenever. So that's been really huge to have that support.
That's great. That's great. Christina, what are some triggers that used to drive you to drink?
A bad day at work would push me to the bar for sure.
Yeah.
Or just being sad about life or whatever, and just wanting to make it all go away and numb a little. Also, drinking helped me be social. So, because I had a lot of anxiety, like social anxiety and all. So, if I drank, I kind of forgot my problems and was involved in what was going on around me. So, or I could just sit there around strangers and drown it all out and not care and leave it, you know. So.
And now here you are a year later, sober, and you are a little social butterfly when you are around the Hope Project family. So, man, how amazing is that? You overcame that, and now you don't need a reason to be social. You just are. And it's awesome.
Yeah, I don't really have social anxiety anymore. My anxiety's tamed quite a bit from it. I don't have high blood pressure either anymore.
That's awesome.
So that's good.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, Brandon, what are some triggers that used to drive you to drink?
I'd have to agree with, like, what Laura and Christina said. Anything. I mean, good days, bad days, celebration, sad times, depressing times, huge alters in my day or week or life in general. Boredom was huge. I work a lot of hours, so I may only get one day off a week. So Saturday night is a full night of that's just what I do. That's what all I did. I don't have any other time to do it. Rough days at work, I would, drink as much as I could until I had a time limit, because I had to try and make sure that when I got to work, I could, God forbid anything happened, I could pass a breathalyzer, at work. But those especially, and the boredom was bad. So, like, Laura said, she wasn't, all day drinker. If I had nothing going on and I was really bored and I was really comfortable, or if I had a mild headache or anything like that, there was nothing wrong with taking a couple shots and just start drinking a few beers. And hey, you know what? I can get drunk by 10 o'clock because I wake up at 6 o'clock no matter what. I can get drunk by 10 o'clock and take a nap. And guess what? I can do it twice in one day. And I've done that. I've done it many times, and it was like, oh, well, I just had to take a nap for a few hours, and then, then somebody would call on me or whatever to help them out or do this or want to go do something. Now I can't leave because I'm drunk, So, I mean, that was my thing, The social stuff was not an issue for me because I'm just a yappy social butterfly like crazy. I'll try and make friends with anybody. I may have gotten that from the bar. I don't know, but but that was, I think the biggest thing was that it was a norm, is that it was just something, a cold beer or a cold drink after work, it's hot and everything just made sense,
Yeah.
So
how do you deal with some of those triggers now that you're sober and in recovery?
I think, I don't even look at them as triggers because like the celebratory things, I was tested early in my sobriety. I went to the Dominican Republic from one of my good friends' weddings, and I was in the Dominican Republic in an all-inclusive resort for 5 days and didn't drink while everybody else was. And man, that was tough. But I did it. I even served champagne to everybody, and I got the fake bubbly that the kids had. But it was fun. It was cool. Like, I cheers with the kids. It was whatever, it was cool. And like sad times, man, I don't allow that in my life. I really try and keep negativity and just stuff that would cause inner turmoil. I don't deal with it. I love my family to death, but they got a lot of drama, and I'm there for them. But man, when it gets to be too much, hey, sorry, I can't be. I can't.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna have to figure it out on your own, or call somebody else. But y'all got to start figuring your own thing out, because I can't be burdened with it, because how I deal with it will be different, and then that just takes me down a road that you're gonna have to deal with later on.
Yep.
And it's a perpetual cycle that I don't allow. So that negativity, man, I try and keep just, I don't want it, stressful situations. Yeah. I mean, stressful situations, I try and keep myself out of them. My PTSD doesn't help me any either. So drinking with all of that, the mood swings, they're not super bad, but when I'm sad, I can be really sad, happy, super happy, and might be happy when you should be sad, and that mixed emotion. So yeah, no, I try and really focus on my emotional state.
It's good. So what is the number one thing? This is the first before anything else. The number one thing that has to be done to get clean.
I can answer that first.
Please.
I would say that you have to want it, because if you don't want it,
Ooh, that's good.
You've not gotten to the point of wanting to change, you will not make it.
Preach. That, I didn't even think about that answer, but that is the best answer.
So hard. I fought.
Had
one side of me saying you got to, and the other side saying don't take it away. Like you have to really want it and be at a point that you're so broken that there's no other way but to try to fix it.
Yeah. Because there are
a lot of wanting to change, yes.
There
need to change.
There are hundreds of thousands of people that need recovery. There are thousands of people that probably want it. It's just the numbers are so small, because the sad thing about people who want it is oftentimes we don't make it that far. We go to jails, we get locked up in a mental ward somewhere, or we get 6 feet under, we die, And so fortunately, some of us are able to make it to that point of, hey, I want this, and I've still got a life to want, and that's the really sad thing. Who else has got an answer to that? What's the number one thing that needs to be done to get clean?
Man, I personally, I didn't want to. Mm-hmm. So, I was kind of, my hand was not forced, but, like I had said before, the different things that were going on in my life during that time, there were a lot of signs God was, he was like, hey man, here's these things going on in your life. Here's what is available to you. Here's people that are going to help. Here's all this and that. And here it is in front of you. What are you going to do with it? It wasn't me searching him at all for it. I was like, I can do this. I got it. And I'm like, oh no, I'm good. I got it. And, once that's how I don't know. It just came to me one day. I was like, yeah, I didn't want it. It was the Lord saying, hey man, I'm going to show you some things. And then you're going to figure it out, because you're going to be forced to figure it out. And then hopefully if you open yourself up, you're going to see, oh, shit. You know, like, yeah, I do need this.
Yeah.
I do need this. I do want this, I guess. And then it became, yeah, no, I do want this. I'm good. Like, that was, that was great for me. And then, I mean, one of my biggest, like I said before, one of my biggest things was, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I agree. Wanting it, but my thing is, I was super codependent in life in general. Now, if I have some codependency issues, it's because I lean on other people who are sober. So that's who I lean on, and so I need that community. That's what I need. Like, the number one thing for me is a sobriety community that I can talk to when I'm having a bad day, or going through a strugglesome time just in life, to where I may not be thinking about drinking, but it might be an option. But who can I talk to bounce some stuff off of?
Yep. Well, that's what you were saying about you didn't want it, and then God gave it to you. God said, "Hey, you going to do this. You don't fall in line." That's why I said it was God's grace and mercy earlier that got you into recovery, because He found you when you didn't want it, and He made you want it.
I was good. I was having fun.
Yeah. Yep. What about you, Laura? What is the number one thing that has to be done to get clean?
Well, the word that comes to mind is powerless. You have, for me, it was very important to recognize that I am powerless over alcohol. And that's not the most popular, nobody likes to be powerless over something. We all like to be in control. We all like to have power. So it's counterintuitive, but as soon as I say, I'm powerless over this, let me hand it to God who can help me, then that's where the transformation begins.
Wow.
Now, I'll tell, just to go off real quick, I'm sorry, but
Sure.
I mean, my thing was like, the powerlessness is that, like, it just sounds so negative, when you just say it, like, oh, I'm powerless. Like, man, no, I'm strong. Like, I'm not powerless. I'm strong, but it's like, it's having that humility, and I don't know if that's the right word. I'm not a good guy with words. I mix a lot of things up.
Well,
but like being humble, like humbling yourself to being like, hey, you know what? I'm not powerless. I just, or that might be an easy word to say, but that was a hard one for me, is accepting that I was powerless. It's like, no, I didn't like that.
I just still say, like, I'll tell people I have no control. When they ask why I don't drink, I say, I'm recovering, and I have no control is what I follow.
I can outdrink you, and I don't want to embarrass you.
Powerless, no control, it's all the same thing. So,
well, but I think you're exactly right, Christine. I think what Brandon is saying and what Laura is saying the same thing, because he's saying, I'm strong, but I know he's a man that knows that he is strong because of God, not because of him.
No.
And that's exactly what step 1, 2, and 3 about is about relinquishing power, because you never had it in the first place. And knowing that there is one that does have power, and his name is Jesus. Come on.
Yeah. And doing your step work, I'll tell you what, redoing your step. And I think I probably do a step 4 almost every day. God bless the guys I work with, man. They don't know it, but I think it happens.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to do a 10-step every day, which is a mini 4-step. So, I mean, you're on the right track there.
Right, yeah.
I'll admit I don't do one every day, but I definitely do one when things come up that bother me, that I get resentments and fears, and I'll put it on paper.
I just do them in my head right at that moment, and then fix them in my head right at that moment. Because otherwise,
a lot of people can do it like that. So how much does Jesus Christ play a part in your recovery? Let's start with Brandon.
To be completely honest, probably more than I know, because I don't speak to Jesus every day.
Yeah.
I don't pray much at all, honestly. Not that I don't believe in His power and glory by any means. Um, I don't pray well. I feel awkward when I pray. But man, I can see. I mean, He brought me to the Hope Project. I mean, we've been friends forever, you know. And when I got to see I mean, I've known your story for a long time, but when I got to get involved with the Hope Project and stuff like that, that got me. That created that stuff. I mean, when we went to church when we were kids, you know, that was just our thing. You know, it's how we jive together.
Yeah.
And then like this, you know, this 30 years later, get to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's you know, he plays a part in my recovery every day when I don't even see it, because he knows that I think of him and that I believe in him and that I know he's working in me, even when I'm not asking for it or thanking him or talking to him daily. You know, I know it may not constitute correct, but you know, I don't read my Bible very often or anything. I try and read the scripture here and there, but I get a lot of my Jesus love from the Hope Project and from your messages and our groups that we get to do and our Zoom meetings and our addiction. I mean, that even if we were able to meet in person, you know, I pray that I could still video you guys, because that's my fix. That's my fix. You know, I haven't found a church that really gets me, or that I really jive with that well. And but you guys are awesome, so I like it. So
praise God.
That's my honest thing, you know. So I don't want to come off saying that I pray to God every day, because I don't.
Dude,
I'm sure I'm not going to lie. So
we wanted honesty. We weren't trying to get some
real and raw, baby. Real and raw.
Real raw, baby. We ain't trying to get no churchy answer. We want the truth. And, you know, Brandon doesn't know it yet, but he's actually going to quit his job and move down here and be full-time with the Hope Project someday.
One day, man. One day. We'll get there.
So, Laura, tell me, how much of a part does Jesus Christ, JC, play in your recovery?
Yeah, so I grew up very churched. I grew up in church, very conservative Christian upbringing.
Yeah.
And so Jesus has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I think that in the context of recovery, that is how I have seen God, I think, the most clearly, is through how He has taken this burden for me and allowed me to be sober for the amount of time I've been sober. And so I'm just extremely grateful to Him for that. And I think that, you know, I look at the Hope Project, and it's this amazing like cross section between what I'm able to get from AA and what I'm able to get from church, the church I go to on Sundays, which I love. Like, these are both beautiful communities,
Right.
But the Hope Project has just a unique like blending of those two components that is very unique. And so it's just been super encouraging.
So grateful that you're a part of this ministry. Really, really am. Christina, how much of a part does Jesus Christ play in your recovery?
A big part, because I guess in the past, when I had a huge emotional hurt, which was a divorce, for support, I ran back to the church and received just so much love and support to get me through that. And that's what it took to heal me that time around. This time around, I knew where I needed to go and who I had ran from in the process. So going back to Jesus for forgiveness and comfort, and just being in His loving presence and His people's loving presence, I knew I needed that.
Yeah.
And that's why I stayed with the Hope Project. I never did the 12 steps with AA. I visited them, but the Hope Project offered Jesus, which is what I knew I needed, and also what I had ran from and gotten, far away from with my drinking, I guess. So I had a lot of forgiveness to ask, and wanted the shame in the past and all the nastiness to go away. And I knew only he can take that away. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's life like now, Christina?
For me? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. I don't have horrible times anymore like I used to. So
Yeah.
it's been a while. I'm a lot stronger now. I'm newly married. Got married in November. I'm trying to have a child, which is something I've always wanted, and another huge encouragement to give up my drinking and move on and get what I want,
Yeah.
with life. And
That's right.
yeah,
So good.
continue to grow daily for sure.
Yeah. Brandon, what's life like now, man?
It's less. It's funny because it's less challenging. It's
Yeah.
more fluid, not because of the booze. It just things work easier. I'm not calling or texting when I'm drunk, causing issues or
I
problems.
noticed.
Hey, you're welcome. But like all those things, I haven't been super unhealthy that I know of outside of my drinking, but I knew that when I drank, I gained some weight and whatever, but I feel better. I don't ache as much. That there's no such thing as a craving for me anymore, which is really nice. There's not like a need for a drink, so that's or an obligation or feel like I'm obligated to. It's very relieving. I'll tell you what, it saves a lot of money too, so that's cool.
Yeah.
So you take what you would spend on alcohol in a year and put that aside and just challenge yourself. Do it for a month and take the money that what a 12-pack would cost and don't drink and don't buy it and then throw that in a little jar and then do that every time you want to drink and buy that and put it in your little jar and see how much money you have in a month or a year. You know what I mean? And then like, look at that. That'd be a good vacation for me. Just saying,
Right.
but, yeah, man, life's good. I rebuilt some good friendships, some better relationships with my mom and my brother. My nieces and nephews, I don't think they were old enough to not like me when I was drinking because I didn't drink around them. But I'm more apt to not bailing when Uncle B's supposed to take him to the zoo. Oh, Uncle B overslept, sorry, and feel like a complete failure. That's that man. Now I may not take them to the zoo because they're crazy kids, but I do visit them. I do. I'm dependable again. That's it. That's it. That I'm dependable again. People can count on me. Things come up, but it's not because I'm drinking. It's not because I'm hungover. Like you can depend on me to do the best I can for you, reach out or whatever, and give you sound advice, not what I think you should do or what the alcohol thinks you should do.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of goods. There's a lot of goods, man. I mean,
Yeah.
And really, I'm sorry, I won't ramble too much, but like
That's good.
finding quality friends, having like, you had your buddies that would drink in the bar and stuff like that. When I got sober and I had my own apartment and I got a new apartment, I was on top of the world. And I had two friends in 2 years outside of my family, 2 friends visit my apartment in 2 years. And that was probably only a few times because nobody wanted to drive all the way 20 minutes to where I lived. They want to stay right where they were because that's where their local bar was. Shoot, there were 5 bars right down the road they could have went to. Nope, didn't want to do that. They wanted to be at their watering hole. And it was just like, man, but you call them and want to do something. No, if it didn't include drinking, man, they didn't want to do anything.
Wow.
They didn't have the money to do anything, go skydiving or do some fun stuff. You call on them for something, they don't answer because they're out partying or whatever. It's like, no, man, I start realizing who my actual friends are, who I call and can call me, who wants to say, hey, Brandon, what's going on? How are things? Let's go get lunch or whatever, or let's go bowling or golfing or something, So that's a big one. So that was a wake up call for me too.
Yeah. Laura, what's life like now?
Life is hard. in sobriety. Life is just hard, period. But now I'm actually living it. And I feel things and I process things. And that's not always rosy, but it is so much better than where I was. And it's just, there's really no comparing the two. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to actually live and experience your life.
Yeah. So this question is for any of you. What would you tell someone who may be watching this that is addicted to alcohol and or drugs?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I would say you don't want the cost of it. I have about $20,000 that I'm still paying on from just debt that it'll put you into. The long list of being hurt by men or the incidents, and you never forget any of those things you do while you're messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Laura, what would you tell someone who is watching that is deathly addicted to drugs or alcohol?
I would say that you are valued, you're valuable and loved and beautiful. And you can be valuable and loved and a beautiful creation of God without whatever your substance or substances of choice happen to be. You're beautiful now in this moment and valuable in this moment in your active addiction, and you can be beautiful after. There can be an after.
Yeah. And if you're interested in quitting and you're interested in the after, please reach out to the Hope Project. There's a million ways to reach out to us. We are always here. We're not here to judge you. We're here to walk with you through this thing called life, because we've been where you're at and we found freedom. We're on the other side of that addiction, and we would love to help you. It's what gives us hope when we see people like you that are still struggling to find freedom and then find it, so reach out to us. So did you want to say something too, Brandon?
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I mean, if you're looking for sobriety of sorts, a lot of times people don't think that that they're addicted. I didn't do drugs unless I was drinking. So I wasn't a drug addict, but I was an alcoholic that drove me to try dabble here and dabble there or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you're even thinking about that you're that you're it's how do I put it? It's don't take the reins, like see, talk to people, see what you think, go to a meeting, contact somebody through the Hope Project. There's other people out there too, that, your church, your local church or whatever, or family members, and get a real dose of what they think maybe, and if you truly think that you might have, a problem or an addiction or whatever, get ahead of it before it gets you, and that means, losing family members or, going through something traumatic or the law or anything, don't let that dictate your sobriety, your choice to be sober or not. Get ahead of it and truly take every little bit that somebody that going to meetings or talking to people that they've been through it. There's not anybody that's sitting here preaching and being like, oh, you should do this because they think so, or they read it in a book somewhere from some so-and-so or whatever. These are people that have been through the life of sobriety and overcoming addictions and stuff. So, and that's the biggest thing. There are people, normal people that, you know, make mistakes over and over and over and over again, just like we all do, you know, that have found sobriety. That's just one of those things that we got nipped in the butt for, you know, for every day to day. So, you know, that was something that was really hard, something good for me to understand, is that it's not just a bunch of weirdos in a classroom. It's a bunch of real people saying, hey man, I got problems and this is what's going on, or this is how I feel about this, or whatever, man. It's really, really uplifting and open. So.
Well, and also I also eased my way into the Hope Project and kind of took it real slow at first and was kind of like, oh, I'm not ready to give it up. I'm not ready to give it up. But they made a big impression, you know, right away on me. And I still drank a little while there, but kept coming back and stayed with it, you know. And you don't have to let anybody push you into it. It's going to happen if you want it to. But I don't know. That gave me a little push, which was needed. But
yeah,
I'm saying they still didn't force me or anything, and it worked out beautifully.
Yeah. Oh man, well thank you guys so much for being my special guest today. You have we've laughed a little, we've remembered some, you know, some bad times and some good times, but now the great thing is we're all walking in freedom from dependencies on drugs and alcohol. And it's truly an honor to know all of you and to be close personal friends of yours, or you of mine. I don't know if you if you consider me a close personal friend, but I consider you one. And I'm just super thankful for you guys. And so this has been Real Raw Conversations, and this is a production of the Hope Project. The Hope Project is a safe place to talk about hard things, guys. We're always here for you. We're always ready to listen, ready to walk with you through whatever it is you're going through. So if you're struggling, reach out today. We're not here to judge you. We're here to walk with you and love you. Thanks, guys. See you next time.